Hello everyone, welcome back to Motuts, Motion Made Easy. My name is Jon Navarro, and today I'm bringing you a new motion title tutorial inspired by the HBO Max splash screen. Now, I have to preface this tutorial by saying that HBO Max and HBO, the company, are not sponsors. I'm not getting any money from them for making this tutorial. I also want to preface that the logo that we're going to be creating, again, is inspired by their splash screen. We will not be using any copyrighted material that is proprietary to HBO or the HBO Max streaming service. So just want to get those disclaimers out of the way up front. So let's take a quick look at their splash screen and what we're going to try to recreate today in motion. So I know it comes on pretty quickly, but if you notice, and I'm going to try to scrub through this slowly, if you notice here we have the HBO logo itself comes on. So the HBO logo comes on, and then you have the Max part kind of appears from behind it to reveal the total title, and then there's a drop down. We're not going to be focusing on this drop down. We're only going to be focusing on the appearance of the HBO and then the Max part of the title sliding out. Now, there have been versions of this splash screen where I've seen this part of the title, the Max part, animated as well, and it kind of changes colors to match this background, this colorful background in the logo. So we're also going to be adding that element to this tutorial today. So let's jump right into it and get started. So we're going to create a new motion project. Let's make sure our presets are set to broadcast HD 1080p. We're going to change the frame rate to 24 frames per second, and we can leave the duration at 10 seconds, even though this animation really is only going to take about 5 seconds. Click open, and we're going to start by creating our background. So let's rename this background. And now in the inspiration splash screen, the way that I think they did this background is they created a color solid and then added some lights to give you that kind of mixed gradient effect where the colors are changing. So I'm going to do something that is reminiscent of that has kind of the same feel, but is not going to be an exact replica. So what I want to do is I want to go into generators. I want to click the gradient generator, and I want to apply that to our background layer. Go into the inspector, and then under gradient, we want to twirl that open. And then what I want to do is I want to add some custom colors here. So I want to add the eggplant, which is going to serve as our dark purple color. And then I want to add this, let's go with magenta. That's a little less aggressive. Let's click close. And then what I want to do is I just want to bring this blend down, as far down as possible. And I want to shift the position on the Y. So I want to shift this down to, we'll say, -470. So this gives us kind of the feeling of the example. Again, not exact. We would have to put in a bunch of lights in here, but you get the idea. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lock off this background, and let's create our title layer. Add a new group, rename this title. And in this title layer, we're going to have two parts of the title, the HBO part and the Max part. I'm going to use two separate fonts. The first one is called Futura, and the second one is called Arsenio. So the Futura font is going to serve for our HBO portion of the logo, and the Arsenio font is going to function for the Max part of the logo. And you can find those on dafont.com, but I will leave a link in the description below. You're going to want to download and install those before we start this project. So if you haven't done so already, do it now, and I'll wait. Great. Now that you have your fonts installed, let's create our title. Select the text tool, and I want to type in HBO. Click out. Select the text tool again. And now I want to type in Max in lowercase letters. This Max title is already in the Arsenio font, so I want to select this HBO title. And I also want to add one more character here. I want to click the text tool, click in the window again, and hold down Option or the Alt key and the asterisk or star key. Now what I want to do is I want to take this asterisk symbol, and I also want to select the HBO layer, and I want to group these together and call this group HBO. So now let's select the HBO layer, let's go into format, and let's change the font to the Futura font. Also want to change this font to Futura. I want these to both be center alignment, and let's just reset the properties for the position so that these are centered, and then I want to reset the position for the main layer so that everything is centered. Okay, let's turn off this max layer for a moment. What I want to do with the HBO layer and this dot layer, I want to increase the font size, let's say 250. Okay, that looks good. And then I want to reposition this dot in the center of the O over here. So let's go into properties, and I want to shift the anchor point on the X to -165. So now that's in the center of the O. I want to select both layers again, and what I want to do is I want to change this from medium to bold. And it looks like it shifted the dot out of position, so let's select that again, and let's just adjust this till it looks like it's about center. -190 looks like that's about right. Now what I also want to do is I want to select both layers, and I need to reduce the tracking. So I want to reduce the tracking, we'll say -8. So you'll notice we keep having to readjust this dot. This is probably going to be the most tedious part of this entire tutorial, to be honest with you. So -170. So now that this is done, we can lock off these layers and we can adjust this group. So the first thing we're going to do, the first part of this animation is going to be to reveal this HBO symbol. So I want the anchor point for this to move down 50 so that it's centered. And let's fit everything into view over here so we can see the whole thing. And you know what? Let's go back into the background. Now that I can see everything, I actually want this gradient a little bit lower. We'll say -540. Just want to get a hint of that pink on the bottom. Just lock this back up. So what I want to do here now is I want to add a mask group. So let's rename this mask. What I want to do is I want to select this rectangle tool and just draw a rectangle that's about the width and height of our HBO layer. We can go into geometry. Well, actually, let's go into properties first. Let's reset the X position, and let's make this Y position -260. And let's go into the shape. And now what I want to do is I want to go into style. I want to feather this 15, a little soft feather. And I want to animate the HBO. So I want the HBO to come up at about 12 frames. So let's go to the 12 frame point. Let's select the HBO layer and go into properties. And what I want to do here is I want to create a position keyframe. I then want to go to the beginning of our timeline, and I want to drag the Y position down or to the left, just so that it's hidden behind the mask. Next thing I want to do is I want to add a mask to this layer. So Shift Command M to add an image mask. And then I want to drag this rectangle into the source well. I want to change the mask blend mode to subtract. And now if we play that back, we have our HBO appearing. So now that that's done, at 13 frames, we want our max part to start. So let's just turn the max on. Let's turn the HBO layer off for a moment. We want to resize this. So let's make the position centered also. And let's say 570 looks about right. Let's go into the properties. I want to reset the X to 0. I want to reset the Y to 0. And let's shift the anchor point down 50. So this actually looks like it could be slightly bigger. 590 looks like it's close enough. So let's turn the max layer off for a moment and go back into the mask layer. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw a Bezier mask. I'm going to use the grid to help guide me. Select the Bezier tool. And what I want to do is I want to create a mask that is going to go around the HBO symbol. Let's drag that down and cover the max portion of the symbol. So just click and drag and close that off. So we can adjust this however we need. That looks good there. And now let's add a feather to this. We want to add a feather of -10. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add the image mask to the max. So let's turn this back on. And let's do Shift Command M, and we want to drag this into the source well. Okay, and we want to do the same thing. We want to change the mask blend mode to subtract. Now we have to animate it, and now we have to do the final part of the animation. What we want to do is we want to add another keyframe at 13 and then go to 102, and we're just going to drag this HBO out to about there. Now what we want to do with the mask is we want to select this mask and we want to add a parameter behavior. We're going to go to motion tracking. We're going to do match move. In the source well, we're going to do match move to the HBO title. Now when that scrubs through, you see that the mask reveals itself. Boom. We also want to make sure that our max title doesn't appear before the HBO title, and hit I for end, blocks it. So now the last part of this is pushing the max title out. With the max title selected, go into properties, create a position keyframe, and then at 102 seconds, move this forward on the x-axis. We want this whole thing to actually be centered. So let's select the title, and I just want to move this back on the x-axis just so everything kind of lines up. You'll see that shifted our HBO over here. So grab this mask and let's move that over. If we click out of everything, close all this stuff up, and now if we go to the beginning and we play this back, we have our HBO Max logo reveal. Okay guys, and the last part of this animation that we need to add is the color change. If you recall at the beginning of this, I said there's a version of this animation where when the max comes on, there's a color wipe right after it. So I want to try to add that. So right after the max comes on here at 102, I want to start at about 106. I want to have this color gradient come on. And I was trying to figure out how to do this, and I was having some trouble with it. I realized they had to have used some kind of caustic layer with a gradient laid over it. And the only thing that we have close to that in Motion is the clouds generator. So go into generators, select clouds, apply that to the mask layer. And then in the inspector, what we want to do is we want to turn the speed down because we don't need the clouds to move. We just want the uneven gradients from these caustic clouds that are created here. And what we also want to do is we want to change the offset a little bit. So before I do that, I want to add the gradient colors. Again, we want this dark color to be eggplant, which is the dark purple. We want this side to also be the dark purple. Then we want to add some colors in the middle. So let's make this kind of light blue. Let's add a lighter purple here. And so now what I want to do is I want to move some of these around just to change up how this appears. That looks good. And so now what we're going to do is we're also going to adjust this. Basically, we want to adjust the layer strength on these first two layers, and on the last two layers we're going to crank those all the way up to 1. Since I want to add this mask to the max layer, let's twirl open the title. And the way I want this animation to work is I want there to be a transition. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add an image mask to this clouds layer, and then I want to add a transition to that. So select the clouds layer, Shift Command M to add the image mask, and then let's go into library and let's go into replicators, transitional, and let's search for the dots left in. So dots in left, I said that backwards. So you can see the animation we have. And let's apply that to the mask layer. Let's go into the inspector. Let's select this image mask and let's drag this into the image well. And so what you're gonna see happen here is you see that comes on and then it fills the screen. What we wanna do is we want to make this replicator to go all the way to the end, but we want the speed of this to come on a lot quicker. So we want that to be done at about 2 seconds. We'll say 202. So let's twirl open this replicator. Let's select the sequence, which you can see that here. Let's hit O for out. So now this comes on, boom. So we're gonna adjust this now. For the replicator layer, we wanna add an image mask to that. So let's hit Shift Command M, and in this source well, we're going to drag in our max title. We wanna turn the title back on, because we still want to see it for the beginning part of the animation. And then now if we play that back, you'll see what happens. But now you notice that after this wipes on, we're left with these weird dots. And if you were doing a title where you wanted that effect, you could just leave that as is. We don't want that. We want this gradient that comes on here to stay on. So I'm going to leave this here for a moment because I want to go back into the gradient. And what I want to do is I want to adjust that. So let's go into the clouds layer. And this is where we're going to start to play with the offset and with the layer strength. You can see when I push that up, it makes it sharper. So again, depending on the effect you want to go for, you can do that. If I pull it down, it makes it softer. We want to pull these down because we want the gradients to be soft. Let's see if I pull that down. Now it's really soft. So let's bring that down to right about there. If we start playing with the Y offset, bring that up a little bit, you can start to see now where that kind of mirrors a little bit what was in the sample. And again, you play around with this, you can, adjust the X. I like that right there. Now let's go back into the emitter and we're going to take care of this little dots thing over here. And the reason why that's popping up is we need to increase our columns. So if we go back into the dots emitter and we go into the replicator controls. So if we go back into the dots replicator and we go into the replicator controls, you're going to see, so I want to increase the columns to 40 and I want to increase the rows to 20. And now you see everything is full. So now if we go back to the beginning and we play that back, done. And there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you again for joining us here at Motuts, Motion Made Easy. My name is Jon Navarro. If you enjoyed the content you watched today, please don't forget to click like and subscribe. You can also click on that notifications button if you'd like to be notified of any future tutorials. And we'd love to engage in a conversation. So if you have any suggestions for future tutorials you'd like to see us do, please leave those in the comment section below. Please don't forget to check in every Monday for our Motion Monday demos and every Tuesday for our Title Tuesday tutorials. And you can find us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I hope to see you again next week, and until then, take care.